everyone, welcome back to the podcast. It's Mike here, and today we're diving into one of my favorite places in the house, the kitchen. Whether you're a seasoned chef or just someone trying not to burn toast, this episode is for you. I've got 100 questions and answers that will make your time in the kitchen easier, smarter, and a whole lot more fun. From cooking tips to solving common kitchen mishaps, we're covering it all. Let's jump in and get cooking. Metaphorically, of course. General kitchen knowledge. What is the best way to keep knives sharp? Use a knife sharpener regularly and avoid cutting on hard surfaces like glass or stone. Why is it important to wash fruits and vegetables? To remove dirt, bacteria, and pesticide residues. What is mise en place? It's a French term meaning everything in its place, referring to preparing and organizing ingredients before cooking. How can you prevent cutting boards from slipping? Place a damp towel or non-slip mat underneath the board. Why should you let meat rest after cooking? To allow the juices to redistribute, making the meat juicier and more flavorful. Cooking techniques. What is the difference between sautéing and frying? Sautéing uses a small amount of oil and high heat, while frying submerges food in oil. How do you blanch vegetables? Boil them briefly, then transfer to ice water to stop the cooking process. Why do we use low heat for simmering? To gently cook food without boiling, preserving flavors and textures. What is the purpose of deglazing a pan? To release and incorporate flavorful brown bits into a sauce. How do you prevent pasta from sticking together? Stir it occasionally while boiling and add a bit of oil after draining. Ingredients. What is the difference between baking soda and baking powder? Baking soda is pure sodium bicarbonate, while baking powder includes an acid to activate it. How can you tell if an egg is fresh? Place it in water. Fresh eggs sink, while older ones float. Why is salt added to sweet recipes? To enhance and balance flavors. What's the difference between brown sugar and white sugar? Brown sugar contains molasses, giving it a moist texture and richer flavor. How do you substitute buttermilk? Mix 1 tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice with 1 cup of milk and let it sit for 5 minutes. Kitchen tools. What is a microplane used for? Grating zest, cheese, garlic, or spices finely. How do you clean a cast iron pan? Use hot water and a brush, avoiding soap, and dry it thoroughly to prevent rust. What is a mandolin slicer? A kitchen tool used for slicing vegetables uniformly and thinly. Why use a food processor instead of a blender? A food processor handles thicker mixtures and larger pieces better. What is a double boiler? A setup where a heat-proof bowl sits over simmering water, used to gently heat or melt food. Food storage and safety. How should raw meat be stored in the fridge? On the bottom shelf to prevent juices from dripping onto other foods. How can you extend the shelf life of fresh herbs? Store them in water like a bouquet, or wrap them in a damp paper towel. Why is it important to cool leftovers quickly? To prevent bacterial growth. How long can cooked rice be safely stored in the fridge? Up to 4 days if kept in an airtight container. What's the best way to freeze soup? Use freezer-safe containers, leaving room for expansion. Baking basics. Why do we preheat ovens before baking? To ensure even cooking from the start. What happens if you overmix muffin batter? It can result in dense, tough muffins. Why is unsalted butter preferred in baking? It allows better control of the recipe's salt content. How do you measure flour correctly? Spoon it into the measuring cup and level it with a knife. What is the purpose of a water bath in baking? To gently cook items like cheesecakes, preventing cracks. Cooking methods. What is braising? Cooking food slowly in liquid, usually after browning it. How do you avoid overcooking fish? Cook it until it's opaque and flakes easily with a fork. What's the difference between roasting and baking? Roasting is typically for meats and vegetables, while baking is for breads and pastries. Why do we sear meat? To create a flavorful crust by caramelizing the surface. What is sous vide cooking? A method of cooking vacuum-sealed food in a temperature-controlled water bath. Flavor enhancements. Why is it important to toast spices? To release their essential oils and enhance flavor. What's the purpose of adding vinegar to soups? To brighten the flavors with acidity. How do you balance a dish that's too salty? Add acid, like lemon juice, or sweetness, like sugar. Why are fresh herbs added at the end of cooking? To preserve their flavor and aroma. What is the Maillard reaction? A chemical reaction that gives browned foods their distinctive flavor. Kitchen shortcuts. How do you peel garlic easily? Smash the clove with the side of a knife to loosen the skin. What's a quick way to soften butter? Cut it into small cubes or grate it. How do you ripen bananas quickly? Place them in a paper bag with an apple or bake them briefly in the oven. What's an easy way to separate egg yolks? Use your hands or a plastic bottle to suction out the yolk. How do you prevent boiling milk from scorching? Stir constantly and use low heat. Dietary substitutions. What can replace eggs in baking? Use mashed banana, applesauce, or flaxseed mixed with water. How can you make vegan whipped cream? Use chilled coconut cream whipped with a hand mixer. What's a gluten-free substitute for flour? Almond flour, rice flour, or gluten-free all-purpose blends. How can you reduce sugar in recipes? Replace some sugar with unsweetened applesauce or a natural sweetener like honey. What's a dairy-free alternative to milk? Almond, soy, oat, or coconut milk. Common cooking mistakes. Why shouldn't you overcrowd a pan? It prevents proper browning by trapping steam, leading to soggy food. How do you fix lumpy gravy? Strain it or whisk it vigorously to smooth it out. Why is preheating a pan important? It ensures even cooking and prevents sticking. How do you avoid overcooking vegetables? Cook them just until tender and use an ice bath to stop further cooking. Why does bread dough need to rise? To allow yeast to create air pockets, making the bread light and fluffy. Food presentation. How do you make a plate look more appetizing? Use contrasting colors, garnish, and arrange food neatly. Why is plating food in odd numbers more appealing? Odd numbers create visual interest and balance. How do you keep sauces from smearing on the plate? Wipe the edges of the plate clean with a cloth or paper towel. What's the easiest way to make a dish look gourmet? Add a fresh herb garnish or drizzle a sauce artistically. How do you serve hot and cold foods together? Prepare cold dishes in advance and focus on timing the hot food. Healthy cooking tips. How do you reduce oil in cooking? Use nonstick pans or cooking sprays and bake instead of frying. What's a healthier alternative to heavy cream? Use Greek yogurt or a blend of milk and cornstarch. How can you add flavor without salt? Use herbs, spices, citrus, or vinegar. How do you cook with less sugar? Rely on the natural sweetness of fruits like dates or bananas. What's a good low-carb substitute for pasta? Use zucchini noodles or spaghetti squash. Seasonal and fresh ingredients. How do you tell if produce is in season? Check local farmers markets and research regional harvest times. What's the best way to store fresh berries? Keep them unwashed in the fridge and wash just before eating. How do you revive wilted greens? Soak them in ice water for 10 to 15 minutes. Why is it important to buy seasonal produce? It's fresher, more flavorful, and often less expensive. What's the best way to pick a ripe avocado? Gently press near the stem. It should yield slightly, but not feel mushy. Fun kitchen facts. Why do onions make you cry? Cutting releases sulfur compounds that irritate your eyes. What's the difference between a yam and a sweet potato? Yams are starchy with rough skin, while sweet potatoes are sweeter with smooth skin. Why does bread go stale? Moisture in the bread redistributes, making it harder. Why is it important to let pie crust chill? Chilling prevents the butter from melting, ensuring a flaky texture. Why does water boil faster with a lid? It traps heat and reduces heat loss. Quick fixes in the kitchen. How do you fix a soup that's too spicy? Add cream, coconut milk, or starches like potatoes to mellow it. How do you stop pasta water from boiling over? Place a wooden spoon across the top of the pot. How do you prevent baked goods from sticking? Use parchment paper or grease and flour the pan. What should you do if your cake sinks in the middle? It's often due to undercooking. Test with a toothpick next time. How do you fix overcooked meat? Shred it and use it in soups, stews, or sauces to add moisture. Cleaning and maintenance. How do you clean a blender easily? Fill it with warm water and a drop of dish soap, then blend. How do you remove burnt food from pans? Soak with baking soda and vinegar, then scrub gently. What's the best way to clean a coffee grinder? Grind uncooked rice to remove residue and oils. How do you prevent wooden spoons from cracking? Avoid soaking them and oil them occasionally. How do you clean a grease-stained oven? Use baking soda and vinegar, letting it sit before scrubbing. Cooking tips for beginners. Why is it important to read the recipe first? To avoid missing steps or ingredients. How do you avoid burning garlic? Cook it on low heat and watch it closely. What should you do if your sauce is too thin? Simmer it longer or add a thickener like cornstarch. How do you avoid dry chicken? Brine it or marinate before cooking and don't overcook. Why is it important to taste as you cook? To adjust seasoning and balance flavors. Advanced cooking questions. How do you temper chocolate? Melt it gently, then cool it while stirring before reheating slightly. What is emulsification? Combining two liquids like oil and vinegar that normally don't mix. What's the secret to flaky pie crust? Use cold butter and handle the dough minimally. Why use a marinade with acid? It tenderizes meat and adds flavor. How do you make perfect scrambled eggs? Cook them on low heat while stirring gently. International cooking. What is the base of a French roux? Equal parts butter and flour. What spice is used to make curry yellow? Turmeric. What's the difference between sushi and sashimi? Sushi includes rice, while sashimi is just slices of raw fish. What is umami? The savory fifth taste found in foods like mushrooms and soy sauce. What's the difference between ghee and butter? Ghee is clarified butter, with the water and milk solids removed. And that wraps up today's episode. I hope you found these kitchen questions and answers helpful, and maybe even learned something new. Remember, cooking is all about experimenting and enjoying the process, so don't stress too much if things don't go perfectly. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And let us know in the comments what your favorite kitchen tip was, or maybe a kitchen disaster story of your own. Until next time, happy cooking, and I'll see you in the next episode.